All right, let's see if we're live. This is the first time I'm streaming to YouTube, so it's sort of an interesting setup here.
Stay relevant in the job.
Don't want to watch that. Where is my channel here? Test stream. Watch that. Ooh. All right, and pause that before we get a feedback loop. All right, well, it seems like we're live. I was able to hear for like a millionth of a second, so that seems to be good. My previous screen video is unavailable. That's lovely. See if I can change that. Fresh on here. Okay, that's significantly better. And I can just pause you. I want to be able to tell if anybody is watching up top right. Hold potentially inappropriate. Sure, not. Okay, and there is my chat. Oh, there's no dark mode for the chat. That's sad. But at least I can see where the chat is now. So I'll just keep that up over on this window to the left. Stream health. Stream quality is excellent. All right, that's good. And the URL for eventually when this is no longer a test stream, and so therefore I actually want to share it. All right, I think that's so far so good. All right, so what I want to do is a test for this stream and also like to see how it's recording. I am recording this with OBS on its own separately, and I'm gonna see whether or not I'm gonna be able to return those off for future streams and have it actually save that video. That will like prevent my computer from blowing up like it does every single time that I streamed when I was going to Twitch. All right, so there's some people in the Denver Devs community who have asked me about Screeps, specifically because they were, they're developers, but they were thinking about getting into it, potentially creating a community server. So one of the things I wanted to do was set that up and run this myself. So I have a server that a sort of a coworker of mine set up personally, and this is for where I work. And we can set up our own here, but this is, I just reset all the data on the server, so this is exactly what it's going to look like if it's just you logging in to begin with. So player name, I'm gonna put in Zerker. Email address, this can be a real email address, or you can just not choose to use email. I don't think it really matters for private servers. This is more for something for the public game server. You want to get an email when suddenly your script stops running, or you start getting attacked, or something else like that. Okay, so I always just choose random. Random everything. That's fine. Okay, so it drops you into the world, and I'm by myself right here. In the corner are bots, and they started out when I reset the server, which was about 7 minutes ago, as of like right this second, during this stream. Oh, don't want to do that. So let's go back to the world. These bots are pretty stupid. They won't really go out and attack ever, but they're great as targets. And also if they start like, destroying the server's CPU by just becoming too big and taking up too many processes, they can also be removed. So starting place doesn't really matter that much if we're just starting out. I am going to find one. These yellow icons, I'm hoping that you're able to see this. These yellow icons here are indicators of energy, and this is where we're going to harvest these energies, and sort of like this is where the sort of StarCraft real-time strategy part of the game come into play. I don't need to show you anymore. So where to place my like spawn building, like my home building, and I haven't been playing long enough to really know like any optimal strategies, nor like I keep on restarting over with my code or then starting on other projects and coming back. This is more of just like a really fun exercise and just building something with code and then later on destroying it and going back and starting over again. So this seems okay start position because I'm gonna be able to get a whole bunch of creeps on these energy sources at the same time. So I'm just gonna plop my down here. I won't bother changing the name of that, and there is my spawn, and it will do nothing. I can't even do anything if I click on it except get information about it and destroy it. And that's because as you've probably heard, everything in this game requires writing code. So I can like generate a spawn if I grab this guy. So this is gonna be game.spawns .spawn1 dot, I think, is it crate creep or spawn creep? They've changed it. One of them is, oh, it looks like it's crate creep. Oh. There's spawn creep too. And it looks like it's exactly the same. Does this one say? One of these I know is deprecated. So let's go take a look at the documentation. Up here, we'll go here. It's gonna open up a window. I'm actually going to open up Chrome and open that here. We'll bring this up on the right. Have you on the left. Have you on the left like that. Okay, so I want API reference. So we're doing this on the spawn. So we need to find like the spawn object, structure spawn. And that's game, structure spawn. Okay, so create creep is out, spawn creep is in. So it's spawn creep. And as we see here, this documentation is not the nicest because it really wants me to have like this on a second window or something. We'll figure this out, like a better way to do this if we play this in the future. But what I want to do is give it a body, which is an array of constants. And now I can only afford 300 amount. And there's other ways in the documentation to figure out how much you can afford. I'm going to give this an array of, I want move last. So let's do work, carry, move. Just something simple like this. This is actually what the tutorial recommends that you just create for like the basic creeps. The second thing is a name. And this name no longer seems to be optional. It used to be that I could just hand it null. I think now it must be given a name. So I can give it something like harvester -1. And then optional objects that go into an object with additional. Okay, so this can get an object, and I can give it a memory key, and then in here will be another object, and I can say something like, okay, its role is to harvest. It's a harvester. Should make that a string. And for example, I can also say working false. 0 return, and if we zoom in, we'll see that our creep is now spawning. So this is the basics of how to play this game. We're gonna run commands and things are gonna go. But of course, running commands manually, I now need to tell this guy, okay, I want you to move over here or over here, whichever one is closer, harvest from it if you can, and then once you're full of energy, then come back and refill this this spawner so that it can create more creeps. It's sort of like a pretty typical MMO in a way of there's really not a mission system here. Everything about that is going to have to be created on your own, which is probably the reason why I keep on playing it, then stopping playing it, then playing it, because I always get dragged off to other games in my free time. So this would be pretty terrible if I was to have to write everything in here. So they do have a script section, and the editor here is okay, but as you can see, it's not. I can't really make this bigger to make it easier to see. What I can do here is find the local folder, and then I can create a file. So we have main.js. I'm gonna open. Do I have an open with? No. Oh, that's a terrible text editor to use. Okay. I want open. Do I have code? I do. Let's open this folder. You're not gonna open that folder? No, sadness. Okay. I don't think this is right. This is setting up Screeps itself. This is not exactly what I wanted here. Maybe what I could do, I'm gonna go to, that didn't do it. Oh, stop selecting everything. I'm just gonna open up a terminal here and code directly from here. This will give me what I want. Well, now I'm running out of room on a screen. So when this entire program is looking for changes in these files. So as I write the code here, every time that I save, it's going to auto update for me, so we can sort of like see things as they go. I guess what I'll do is I'll move this to the right, cover the documentation. Whenever we need that, we'll just go and look. Okay, so they're going to run on a game loop. So I'm going to first create a function loop. And let's just do a quick console.log. Testing. And they are going to require this into their, like, the main code. Module.exports equals. So I can try just loop right now, and we can see what happens. When I save, you'll see the code just came in here, and if I come console, no testing. So what I believe is they need this to be in an object so that they can destructure it out of here and then run it. And there's our testing. Perfect. I'm going to remove this testing because that will get annoying quickly. Reset our console. All right, so the first thing that I want to do here is tell this guy is, hey, if you're not working, and we can tell he's not working by, I'm going to just reset all of this memory watchers. I'm going to go to harvester 1, view memory. Roll harvester working false. So inside of here, we can now start to do things like, okay, let's just like loop through all of the creeps. And for each of these creeps, we're gonna do all of our different stuff. So we can get all the creeps the same way that we sort of got this spawn. There's an object that has it. So we're gonna do a for in loop. For let name in game dot creeps. And now I can say const creep equals game dot creeps name. Okay, so that gives me the specific creep that's going through. Now, of course, we're going to loop through them all. And what do I want to do here? Could probably make that a little bit bigger. I want to tell it to, well, when it's sort of like set its working state first. Like, is it working? So let's first start with like set working state. So I'm going to sort of run these as functions, use the promise pattern to sort of like order them top to bottom, make it look a little bit easier, nicer. So we're going to say set working state, and we're going to pass in the creep. And then, so immediately after that, what do we want to do? After we set the working state, we want to, well, we want to run their roll, don't we? So then I guess it's just tell them to work. So tell assign, well, they already have roles assigned. So it's more of just like, just work. I guess I don't need a dot then here. We're just gonna set the working state, and then after here, we're going to, we can do a switch statement maybe. Oh, that was lovely. Let's see. See if I can remember. I always forget the exact switch statement parameters here. Is it switch? I should just look it up. It's easier and less of a chance of screwing it up. MDN switch. It's parentheses. Okay. So switch, this is going to be creep dot, I think it's going to be memory. Creep dot memory dot roll. And then we do need that. Kind of want to stay consistent, not have a space there. And case harvester. Okay, so if this, no colon here. All right, there we go. So case harvester, let's just console log. Make sure that I've written this code right. I am a harvester. Actually, I think I can do something one better. I can tell the creep to say harvest. And I want to break out of here and not forget that. Okay. I don't think I need a default case for this right now. Let's save this and see what happens. First of all, we get a big error. And that's because set working state is not defined. Okay, I'm gonna pause this console so it doesn't, just sit there and run forever. And let's go create this function. So function set working state. This is gonna take a creep. And what does working mean for us? If it has no energy inside, then it needs to be working. So currently it can be in a working state or not. So if creep dot memory dot working, so if this is true, if we are working right now, we want it to suddenly not be working anymore if this creep runs out of energy. So if creep dot carry dot energy is equal to 0, then I want to set working. So creep dot memory dot working equals false. How do I close this? There. Now, if we're not working, we want to start working if our energy gets set to max, like if we're carrying all of it. So if creep dot carry dot energy is equal to creep dot carry capacity, and all of these properties that are on here, they're found in the documentation. And if you ever looked at any kind of documentation before, it's actually really nice documentation, and it seems to be relevant and working, and that's pretty much all you can ask for. Creep dot memory dot working equals true. So let's set this. Aha! Now it's telling us harvest. So I can resume tracking the console. Now it's just telling us this over and over and over again, which is not all that helpful, but that's all we told it to do. So set working state. Well, here's where, I guess, if we're a harvester, we also want to check if we're working, right? So maybe before I even do this switch, I want to have, okay, if creep dot memory dot working, and then we'll do this. There we go. We'll do all of this stuff in case we're not working. Okay, so if we are working, we're going to want to, that means that we have this full. Let's, oh, I sort of dyslexized this. I want to put this up. Right, there we go. I want, if we are working, we tell it to run its role. Otherwise, we tell it just whoever you are, go and mine some energy. So mining energy is a very interesting thing, because if we don't have this, like, we can try to just find it, and as you can see, anything that we want to store, we can just put directly on top of the memory, in the memory, and then store it for the next tick. Because the time through this loop, every single time, just like a standard non-stateful server like Express, everything is gone, and you have to re-get all the information. And if you're on the server and not paying money, your scripts are limited to 10 CPU, which in reality is 10 milliseconds. That's an extremely short amount of time to run a bunch of AI code. So in this private server, we're going to have access to 100 CPU, which is not really all that. It's going to be easy to fit everything in there for at least a good long while. What I want to do is I'm going to first start this off by not being very efficient. And then we can figure out some way to like make this a little bit better, refactor it, and whether or not we do this on stream or if we just do this as part of our own system, that's where everybody can sort of differentiate off and make their own AIs. So we're gonna find, we need to tell the creep here to find the nearest energy. So let's do find nearest energy. So we're gonna just run harvest energy and pass it the creep. Function harvest energy creep. Okay, so in here we can get the current room that the creep is in and run a find closest by. So you can say const energy source equals creep dot pos dot, and then I always forget because there's like some find something. Let's go back to the documentation. That's this guy right here. And we now need we need the room position. That's that .pos. Find closest by path, find closest by range. If we find closest by path, if this one gets blocked completely, there's no path to it, so then it won't be found. But as we can see, there's a high CPU cost. If we do find closest by range, it's not quite as high. All right, so find closest by path, and we give it a type, and we here like find like sources, I think is what it is. We can go take a look at the constants to figure out what it exactly it is. I'm going to move this over to the left. Where did you go? Move over there. And I want to say, hey, that's not what I wanted. Give me a cursor. There we go. Find closest by path. Okay, so we need to like type find and then something in here. Let's go open up the constants. Here we go. Find. So this is really, really poorly named here. Find sources. The reason why I know that this is the energy is because that's what they tell you in the tutorial, which I highly recommend playing through. So I'm going to replace that here. Find sources. All right, what else did we want to look at here? Then optional options. Okay, so we can filter, and we can give it the algorithm for what to use. The default value is determined automatically using heuristics. So we could tell it to use A* or Dijkstra. Okay, so this should give us an energy source. And we can, in fact, console.log this energy source. But we're going to find out that there is a problem with console logs here, is it won't actually sort of give me the entire object. Instead, it just says, oh, well, here that source number is. So we did find a source, and that should be an ID. This should be the source closest one. 680. Yeah, this looks like the exact ID of what we're looking for. So what we could do is like figure out the distance to it, or we could just attempt to harvest from it. And then it won't throw an error, unfortunately. What we could do is, I mean, we could write an entire function to do that, then use like a promise pattern with catches and throw errors ourselves. That might work. But for this one, I'm going to follow sort of like what the tutorial suggests, which is attempt to harvest, get the return value, and then check manually to see if that return value has the error not in range. So const result equals creep.harvest, and then we're going to pass it the energy source. Now, if this result is equal to the constant error not in range. Well, what do we want to do? We want to tell the creep to move to it. So creep.move to energy source. And that's it. If I save this, our creep immediately begins moving over to this energy source and harvesting from it. We can, and we'll also see that this little tiny yellow bubble inside of it begins to grow as it harvests this energy. Now, the problem here is that I've waited long enough that the spawn, which once per tick will get a free energy to fill it up. That way, if the catastrophic error failure happens, you're not screwed and have to like destroy everything to restart, but you'll be able to eventually create a single creep. All right, so this got to its 50 energy here, and it stopped because of our code that set its working state. So at this point in time, now it's trying to run in here, and we need to tell it, okay, well, if you're working, your only job is to now come back here and feed this to the spawn. But I kind of want to create another harvester, harvester 2, so that way it has enough sort of like spare room for energy for this harvester to come in. And harvester 2 automatically starts working because of our game loop. Let's go and tell these guys, if you're a harvester, we want you to, deliver energy to spawn. I think I can just do this on its own and do creep. I'm not really going to optimize or like figure out how to make this work with multiple rooms at this point in time. This is just going to be really simple. Function, deliver energy to spawn. This takes a creep. Okay, so it's going to actually be pretty similar. We need to find the closest spawn, and I believe that there is a spawn object directly off of the room. So what I can do is const spawn equals creep.room.spawn. Now I can verify this with a quick console log. Console.log spawn. Save. Undefined, so that's actually incorrect. Let's go take a look at that documentation again. So in creep, there should not be a spawn, but there should be a room object, and I'm going to go to room object, and I wish that it moved over here. I'm just going to go find the room over here. Room object. Actually, I just want room. I don't see. Oh, there's a controller. Okay, so it looks like I probably will need to find, because that's kind of sad here. Okay, so we'll just do a pure find again. So it's creep dot position dot find closest by path, find, and I bet it's my spawns, but let's go take a look at the constants here. Find my spawns. I don't need to filter or anything else. This should work. Let's go take a look at the, yeah, there's our spawn. And unfortunately, we're almost filled. I probably don't have enough time. It's a lot slower in a main game server. Okay, we want to do the same thing here. We want to attempt to deliver. So const result equals creep dot transfer, and I always forget the order of transfer, so let's go take a look at that. I'm gonna go back to creep. We're gonna take a look at transfer, target, and then resource type. So our target is going to be the spawn, and then the resource type is a string. One of the resource, I think this is going to be a resource energy, but we can again go take a look. Let's see, looking for resource. Resource energy. Okay. Then if, and it's going to be the exact same thing as here. So clearly, if I wanted to, I could pull this out into its own function and tell it to go move. That would probably be the best thing to do, but I'm not going to do that right now. Move to the spawn. Let's go back and take a look. Well, it came back. Ooh, take a look. Harvester 1 is gone. That's because these creeps have a limited lifespan. It actually says time to live. This is the number of ticks. And these are slightly faster than 1 second ticks. And that's because this is a very fast server that only has me playing on it right this second. That guy just won't really work anymore. Now, if I tell this spawn to bring it back with Harvester 1 again, Harvester 2 will immediately deploy that energy to the spawns that it can create another creep again and then go harvesting again. So, things that are going to be important for this game. After we get harvesting sort of like our economy set up, the next thing to worry about is over here, this room controller. So it's telling me that it's going to downgrade in this many ticks, which at this point, the ticks are moving by fast enough that this is going to be a major problem for us, because as soon as this goes below level 1, we lose this room and we get kicked out completely. So what we want to have happen is to send a creep to gather energy and to upgrade this controller. Let's see if we can do this really quickly based upon what we have right here. So if I create I'm going to call this Upgrader 1. These are just names stolen blatantly from. I'm also going to add in another carry, so that way it has more energy, because that's going to be a long trip, and I don't want it to go over there just for a small amount. Carry's only going to be 50 more, so this brings it up to the maximum 300 of the spawn can have. Memory role is going to be upgrader, and working is going to begin as false. So we're going to start this. Our upgrader should immediately start going and harvesting. Yeah, because we tell it like, hey, if you're not working, go and harvest. These names are a little bit hard to read, but we can see that I believe that it's up there right now. And let's add in another case here. Case. Okay, this is going to be upgrader. And this is going to be upgrade room controller creep break. All right, so let's create that function, upgrade room controller. You take a creep. All right, so this is going to be like pretty much the exact same as these. So you can see there's going to be a lot of the ability to sort of optimize, create different sort of more generic functions that allow us to reuse these. So instead of spawn, this is going to be a controller. But instead of creeped up position, this I noticed in the documentation was available directly off the room. So cream.room.controller, I believe. And result, this is going to be upgrade. And we want to upgrade the controller with, we don't even tell it to energy, that's the only option. And if you're not in range, move to the controller. So let's see if that works. Error. Creep.upgrade is not a function. I bet it's upgrade controller. Yep, there it goes. So having this guy here will save this, because as long as we're adding energy to it, it's not, well, losing energy. And that means that that we get to keep and hold this room for as long as we can. Now, the last thing, and what I don't have time for before the end of the stream, is to set up an auto spawner, because right now we're having to come in and manually run the command to spawn these creeps. But the interesting thing about this game, and the reason why it's sort of like fun to play, is the code runs 24/7. So if you're on like the major world server, you set your code and then you go off and do whatever you feel like doing. When you come back to it, your code is run, and these guys will all die before I pick this up again. And because they all die, nobody will upgrade the controller. The controller will then run out, and probably by tomorrow, if I was to look at this in the morning, I would have to start over again. My code would be here, so it wouldn't be a true starting over again. I would just be starting in a new room and setting up a new, well, everything. So this is what the game is all about. And it gets really interesting when you get multiple people playing together, especially if we're getting multiple people that are sort of like know each other on the same private server, because then we can all make sure that we're on the same level, and then sort of have fun seeing who can figure out how to take over and build an army and attack each other first. And then resets are available in case we want to do that. So now this has been a test stream because, well, a while ago I streamed for a while on Twitch TV for doing programming stuff. And I wanted to get back into that, but a friend of mine was streaming on YouTube and suggested that I check that out. So it's been a short hiatus. I'm gonna come back, and I'm thinking about doing this morning stream thing, warming up with Brooks essentially. And at 8 a.m. my time, Mountain Time, I'm going to have to cut it off and then head over to work, where well, where the real day starts. So this has been the basic bare introduction to Screeps. I'm gonna also like cut this out, put it online, and share it with everybody who was interested in learning a little bit about Screeps, and then maybe we might get a sort of like a Denver Devs community server up and running somewhere. All right, and with that, I'm going to shut the stream down. And come over to OBS. Perfect. And all right, guys, it's been fun. I'll see you next time.